We're listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Rapoff.
Good Sunday evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Bulldog Hour. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and sitting here next to me is my co-host, Justin Rapoff.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Been a great weekend so far.
Yeah, and we're celebrating a Wilson football victory from Friday night in dominant fashion. A huge win. Could have been even bigger, but 63-7 over McCaskey. And we will recap that game, although honestly, Justin, there's not going to be a lot to say because everything went Wilson's way.
Yeah, there's not a lot of dissecting.
Yeah,
There'll be some cool things to point out.
Sure, yeah.
But not a lot of, other than the cool things
not
to point
a lot
out.
to analyze.
Not a lot to break down.
Or even fix. We're not Coach Doms or the coaching staff that we have to nitpick maybe some minor issues.
That's
here
probably
and there.
good for everybody. I don't mean that for you, but I mean that for me. Like it's good that I'm.
Yeah, we don't like to talk negative. Like everyone, you should know us by now. We don't like to dwell on negatives. And when you win 63-7, there's not a lot of negatives to go around. And like I said, I'm sure the coaching staff could say you missed this block, you should have done this better, whatever. But that's not what we're here for. We are here to celebrate what we are doing. And it has been a fantastic weekend, and Wilson got that started.
Yes, they did.
Friday night. So I mean, let's start out with some of the fancy things. 9 different Bulldogs scored Friday night, which I don't
scored
think
touchdowns.
Scored touchdowns Friday night. And when we're talking about scoring in general, actually 11 different Bulldogs scored Friday night. We had 9 young men score touchdowns, and then we had 2 different players kick extra points.
Right.
So I'm guessing both of those are Wilson records. Generally speaking, when you're scoring that many points, someone's usually getting at least a second one.
Right.
You know, I think about going back to 2016 when Wilson scored 68 against Lebanon. That was a team that had Iggy Reynoso on it. He scored multiple touchdowns in that game. So you're already eliminating that possibility. Wilson beat Ephrata in 2010. I think it was 63-0. But I believe Rodney Gillen had multiple touchdowns in that game. So it's very hard to have that many people score touchdowns. And I'm guessing the 2022 team set a new Wilson record with the number of people to score touchdowns and then the number of people to score in a game in general. Very close to setting more records, and they clearly could have kept scoring if they wanted to. I know there probably were some that were hoping they'd get another score to get to 69 or 70 to set a new record. It's fun to set records, but you also want to be careful to not look like you're being obnoxious.
Yes.
Which, we don't ever want to do that. You're not trying to embarrass anyone. McCaskey clearly is a team that is struggling. We knew that coming in. They lost 38-0 to Reading. They've also had a few other lopsided losses throughout the year, and it's just tough. And you don't want to be accused of being unsportsmanlike.
It's already tough. You don't need to make it unnecessarily more tough.
And clearly Wilson didn't. They were backups in almost immediately. Some rotations already in the second quarter, and then absolutely once the second half started.
Which is also something that's really nice on senior night.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes that a little easier.
Basically, anyone dressed, you were playing.
Yeah.
Like you got time. Some people got a significant amount of time. It was fabulous to see some of those guys, especially the seniors that don't get to play as much as they probably would want to, got a lot of time on Friday night.
It's also awesome that it's towards the end. Obviously, senior night is usually towards the end. But like you've been grinding it out for so long now. It's one thing. Sometimes those opportunities present themselves, week 3, 4, stuff like that early in the season. But the mindset of the team can be just a lot different at that point in terms of like what you're still trying to figure out or all these different things. But to have that in week 9, in most likely the last home game, it's a cool thing with that regard. And it was a successful night for Wilson.
Yeah, 100%. It was great all around, and it was a wonderful evening. Unfortunately, yes, it probably was the last home game. It was nice to see the seniors get carried off the field by the underclassmen. It was also nice to see the team stick around and listen to the band perform uh, their show. I believe it was the first time they did the entire show. And also yesterday was their Sound Panorama, which is their big
Yep.
event. And we wish them the best of luck. It was fun to see the players out there watching the band perform, and then also stick around to hang out with the newer senior tradition of this year they called it Most Valuable Bulldog, which you got to be a part of.
I did. That was pretty cool. Obviously, a bit of a surprise. You don't know that's coming, but it was cool. Just I don't know. That gets into a whole conversation. But that's a really cool experience. And I think the kids know it's a cool experience, but I think it's one of those things where down the road they'll even maybe in perspective a little bit more how much that means to their teachers. That it was really cool. So that was a fun experience, and getting to see. For me, it was MJ. Getting to see MJ after the game and get a picture taken, stuff like that was a lot of fun.
And he's always a big special teams contributor, but he had a lot of time on defense Friday night, and I got a really cool one of him almost getting a safety in the end zone. He just snuck through. I believe him and Christian wrapped up. I don't remember if it was the McCaskey quarterback or the running back, just shy of the end zone.
Not the pile on, but imagine if we had like two get like half sacks. I don't know that it was a sack, but like two half tackles, and you like get credit for the safeties, like to split up even more of the number of scores.
Yeah, the number of people who forced the score. Yeah, interesting. It would have been very interesting, but I don't even have the highlights. Unfortunately, the game recap isn't available on Huddle, which is disappointing. So I can see if I can pull up the individual film, but jumping around while trying to do this show is tough to do. I wish this recap was here, but it is unfortunately not here.
But yeah, looking at some of the things, it was a good night for the Bulldogs, and like I said, on senior night, got to celebrate the seniors. It was a good way to go out at home.
Yeah, absolutely, and. I know leading up to the game and after the game, it was written by Jeff Reinert on Lancaster Online, Lancaster Newspaper, Lancaster Sports, and Mike Drago from MikeDragosports.com, a sponsor of the Bulldog Hour.
Yes.
And we'll get to the rest of those. But, about Wilson's streak and Wilson's tradition of non-losing and winning seasons, which we talked about it last week a little, but it was nice to see write-ups from, just little blurbs in their preview or game stories about Wilson's ongoing tradition of excellence, seasons, years, decades of excellence that the program has been able to attain. And it's something that always deserved to be mentioned and celebrated. And we do that a lot around here, but it's kind of become, I don't think want to be taken for granted, but it now comes to the point where it only becomes a big deal when you reach a big number, it seems.
Right.
And the team is getting close to that. I think this was the 47th straight winning season. So, 3 more seasons, you get to 50 straight years of winning football. It's amazing. We've seen some teams in the area have successful seasons and then they drop down, and,
that's just the natural
consistency
flow
of Wilson is just phenomenal. And that has to go to the coaching staff.
Yes.
The buying in, the dedication and commitment.
Yeah. It's one of those things where like players come and go, and that's just the natural progression. The coaching staff and staffs in this reference, are relatively stable, and that's the constant, So
yeah, and there's some attrition and some changes here and there, but by and large, you look at the coaching staff, the way it's created and maintained, and Coach Doms has been around for 44 years on staff.
Something crazy.
Matt Bender's now there for I think this might be his 25th season. Same thing with Ernie Walber. I believe this is his 23rd season Coach Peterson and LCD, little Coach Doms, are now here for a decade plus.
Yeah, Coach Palm's been around.
Coach
a while.
Palm,
Like,
I didn't even mention Jeremy. Yeah, he's been here since 2004. So
right,
I mean,
like,
all those
the
guys.
combined years is just astonishing.
Right.
You don't see that a lot of places.
No, you don't, and it's commendable and a huge reason why Wilson continues to be where they're at. And in 2022, that's at 7-2 after the victory against McCaskey Friday night. And a big Week 10, Game 10, regular season finale
Huge.
coming up at Manheim Township in Neffsville, unfortunately. That is the one we'll be previewing here at the end. But before we do that, let's take care of our house cleaning here. Just a little housekeeping and announcements that we like to do. We do want to thank and remind everyone that the Bulldog Hour is presented by Mays Sandwich Shop. And we want to thank my dad, Bill Mays, for the support of this show since the beginning. And also, I mentioned him already, but Mike Drago and MikeDragoSports.com has supported us now for the last 2 years since Mike Drago Sports became a thing. And Mike has been very supportive of this show and Wilson football in general, and just Berks County football, basketball. He was able to do soccer last year. I know he's got a lot in the future coming up, and just wants to keep covering high school scholastic sports throughout Berks County, and honestly knocking it out of the park, covering every single game in the new LL Berks League with himself, his reporters, and then with the guys down in Lancaster.
Yeah, like selfishly, like I was such a huge fan when I saw that was going to happen. And I hope it has worked out for both parties there, that it would continue on. I feel like it's a perfect marriage, to have that just extended coverage for overlapping now because of the way the league is set up. I feel like it's definitely something that's set up for success.
The reciprocity just works. It goes hand in hand.
Yeah. So I hope they are seeing that, LNP and Mike, I hope they're both seeing that because obviously I would love to see that continue. But at least for the moment, it's unbelievable. Great coverage.
So in addition to Mays Sandwich Shop and MikeDragoSports.com, I want to thank our individuals and families that are supporting us, including the Hop family, Andy Herr, and our 6 anonymous donors. So appreciate each and every one of you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for the support this season. And we still have some few weeks to go. We're guaranteed at least, honestly, maybe at least 3 more shows, because we'll have next week's recap.
Right.
We haven't talked about what's happening that bye week yet. I mean, we'll get to that. I was insistent that we were going to do a show, but the Phillies are in the World Series now, so we'll see what's going on. Maybe
things you did not think you were going to have to plan
I would
around.
ever have to worry about saying that while doing this show.
Dude, your tweet about turning off Red Zone today was spot on. Like,
right.
If you would have thought, now it was a perfect storm for me because the Eagles were on bye, but if you were to say there was going to be a Sunday in October where I literally would not really honestly care too much about the NFL this week, like I probably watched a total of 20 minutes of football today.
I watched it at the very beginning, first hour.
So I was still on my way home today, so like I listened to some, but man, that Phillies came on and off we went.
Yeah, well, it's mind-boggling, but also my Dolphins weren't playing either.
Right.
So they're playing. I'm sure many of you listening right now are Steelers fans, so you're about to hate me a little bit, but I hope you're miserable by the time this night comes to an end, because I need my Dolphins to win again, and I know there's a lot of Steelers fans around here. A lot of Steelers fans.
Oh, I'm aware. So are you.
Oh, yeah, I'm very aware. I live in a household with them, and tonight's not a great. I mean, it's probably good that we're not able to butt heads right now, because that's never fun. As you are always aware of when the Eagles and Steelers play every 4 years.
It's my nightmare.
We'll just wait for that Eagles-Steelers Super Bowl.
Dude, we've talked about this at length on our other show. That is my nightmare. That is my nightmare, because if I win, I lose.
Right.
And if I lose,
you lose.
I lose.
Yeah,
right.
it really is the worst case scenario. Right. But yes, so I don't know if we'll have a show in 2 weeks' time. If we do, it might be a different day, different time. Just depends on what's going on with the Fall Classic. And then we will have a show the next week, which would be hopefully a recap of a Wilson victory in the first round of district playoffs. We are if we have a show in between there, that bye week on November 4th or 5th or whatever, that weekend, 4th, 5th, 6th, we will probably be previewing the entire district playoff field. We will take an entire episode here to dissect each and every team, scenarios, how they played during the season, just to understand the other 7 teams chasing a district title with Wilson. I did not get to compute my estimated power rankings like I did last week. Just I wasn't around today, unfortunately, to do that.
And it's a long process. It's not like a simple like, oh, I'll go enter the Wilson win.
Right, no, I have to change like 40 or 50 different teams.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a long process. I did not get to do it. But I can pull up the power ratings as they stand
Right. And again,
officially after 9
as we
games.
talked about last week, it's hard to predict some of the outcomes like CD East
Smoked Central
blowing
Dauphin.
the doors off Central Dauphin, which is not good for Wilson.
No, it's not good for Wilson at all. That does not help us in our attempt.
It also means Central Dauphin's not going to get to 500 this year.
Right. Well, it's kind of what I was alluding to them, and honestly, I'll just say them and Mifflin.
Right.
Mifflin, I think, had a streak of 18 consecutive winning seasons that is getting snapped this year. I feel like Central Dauphin should be right in that area too. They've always have been very, very strong. Yes. But yeah, they're sitting at 3-6 after that. I mean, they got beat up by their rival, their same school district rival that they share a field with. Yeah, 35-0. Just didn't see that coming. CD East had been struggling.
Yeah,
CD
East, that was only their 3rd win.
Right, got it in huge fashion too. So as it stands here, I guess I should transfer that over. But that long-winded way of saying we have a show next Sunday, October 30th at 8:30. We will recap the game against Manheim Township, which we're going to preview shortly. Then we probably will have a show that next weekend, and then we will definitely have a show the weekend of November 11th and 12th right in there. That would be the first round of district playoffs. And where are the power ratings right now? Well, if you're watching, you can see them on the screen. Central York is at number 1, a hair in front of Hempfield, who did end up beating Cedar Crest on Friday, though it was close at halftime. It was 10-0, and entering the fourth quarter was 17-0. So no Falcons miracle this year against the Black Knights. So Hempfield moves to 7-2 and is in second place in the power ratings as it stands right now. Harrisburg at 6-2. They did miss a game, so that is correct. They are 6-2. Township, though, what a big surprise. They're not prepared and haven't entered their game. They should be sitting there at 7-2. Cumberland Valley, 6-3. York William Penn, they did also miss a game, so they are there at 6-2. There's Wilson at 7th at 7-2. And right now, the last team in is Carlisle at 5-4. So big week upcoming, though, as Wilson at 7 plays Manheim Township at 4. And Harrisburg plays Central Dauphin. And with the way Central Dauphin has looked and played, that doesn't seem to be in any doubt of who's going to win that game. Hempfield travels to Reading, so if you'd like to be big Red Knights fans this week, that is an upset you'd like to see. And Central York, I believe, has their big crossover game, well, not crossover game, but rivalry game in the York Adams League with York William Penn. So a 1 versus 6 matchup, a 4 versus 7 matchup, and a 3 versus 12 matchup, and I guess technically a 2 versus 15 matchup. So yeah, big games all around. Everyone on the power ratings plays someone else on the power ratings here. I do not know who on the top of my head who Carlisle plays this week. But Wilson honestly has a big enough lead there that I don't think they're in danger of being passed by Carlisle or Dallastown. Even if the Bulldogs would lose to Manheim Township this Friday, Wilson may be securely set there in the 7. And I will run through the power ratings projections and see what comes up. But obviously a huge game because you got to beat those teams in front of you. And a win against Manheim Township could vault Wilson from 7th to 5th. I don't think we're getting to 4. Sorry to burst those bubbles. That's what we kind of talked about when we mentioned senior night. That most likely was the final game at Gursky this season, at least unless something crazy happens in the playoffs.
Well, if you are able to climb a spot or two, and then there's an upset in the first round, you could have the potential to host in the second round in the semifinals. But yeah, like that's stuff we can't worry about. The thing we need to focus on is that we're playing another really good team this week in Manheim Township, but their 2 losses are to Hempfield and to
Cumberland Valley.
Cumberland Valley.
And they beat Harrisburg.
Right.
So
yeah. So
dancing all around there.
Right.
Yeah. So a lot on the table this week. Huge game.
One quick note. I'm okay with the fact that State College is in the mid-pen, but not in this list.
Not in District 3.
Because they look
They
tough.
are 9-0.
They beat Harrisburg and Cumberland.
They beat them by 2 touchdowns.
I don't think they've lost.
No, they're 9-0.
Right.
So that's District 6 problem, which I think also becomes District 7's problem before they would even get to the District 3 champ.
Yeah, if we have to face State College, that is
very
a good problem.
Very good sign, yes, absolutely. So if you see Wilson State College, it was a good year.
Yes.
It was a good year. So let's just kind of put a bow on the McCaskey game, though. Here, just go over some of the statistics because they were kind of wild. I already mentioned 9 players scoring touchdowns, 11 players contributing points, both program records. 6-3-7 doesn't set any records. Close to if they one more touchdown would have set a couple of records. I believe at least a new individual. Wilson record for most points scored in the game. It sits at 68, and that was set against Lebanon in 2016. But overall, Wilson just in dominant fashion, 15 first downs to McCaskey's 5. Wilson rushed for 289 yards, only needed to pass for 87 yards. But when passing, Wilson was 6 for 8, so getting it done very efficiently. Total offensive yards 376. McCaskey got to 119, but again, a lot of that was done in the second half and honestly in the fourth quarter, because even the seniors and the backups that came into play, they played very well in the third quarter.
Yeah, and that's 2 weeks in a row we saw an impressive showing from that group.
So excellent done by them on both offense and defense. Didn't necessarily get to punch it in anymore, but they moved the ball.
Yeah.
And the defense was able to stop him at times. But then as we moved down the depth chart and the night got a little bit later, McCaskey was finally able to break through and get that one touchdown very late. It was under 2 minutes to play in the game when McCaskey got the score. But doing things on special teams, again, second week in a row, special teams looked really good.
Yeah.
So obviously we know teams are kicking away from Cam Jones. Why wouldn't you? He's scoring at an 83% clip in punt returns, which is mind-boggling. When he's gotten the opportunities, he's scored 83% of the time. He's 5 for 6, which just doesn't happen. Like that's not a real. That seems like an unreal stat.
No, yeah, it's amazing.
So what do you do? Well, Wilson adjusted, put a second man deep on punts. That was Eddie Case, and all he did this week was score a touchdown on a punt return. And
didn't get caught this time.
No, he didn't. To start the game, our player of the game for this effort got Wilson on the board immediately. So they didn't kick to Cam Jones on the opening kickoff. McCaskey went to Mekhi Cooper, and all he did was return it 88 yards for a touchdown to put Wilson up 7-0, 8 seconds into the game, I believe. So courtesy of the Ben Rada extra point.
And it did not slow down from there.
No, it did
for a
not.
while.
Wilson was up 35-0 at the end of the first quarter. That was another attempt at a record. I don't think they're actually trying, but I was sitting there thinking, if they get to 42, I believe that's a new record for points scored in the quarter. Cleveland Harding broke through, and I thought he was going to get it on what would have been probably the last play or second to last play of the first quarter, but was tackled at like the 20 or so, and then the clock ran out on the first quarter and didn't have that chance. So we tied a record for points in a quarter, 35, and it's happened a bunch. That Wilson has scored 35 points in a quarter a few times, including earlier this year against Reading.
Right.
I know for the fact off the top of my head they did it against Penn Manor in 2015.
One of the things that sticks out to me now is how long 35-point quarters take. Like they take a long time.
Yeah, well, the first half took almost an hour and a half or something like that to play.
It was a long
an hour and 20 minutes. It was a very long half, and then the second half went by quickly because of the running clock. But just circle back around. The kickoff was returned by Mekhi Cooper, and he's getting our player of the game for this week for that effort.
That's awesome.
When you kickstart the game like that, we feel like that's the place to go. And I know it's a shock because it is an odd-numbered week, so that was always penciled in for Cam Jones. And he could have gotten it because he scored a touchdown.
He was one of the group.
He had a really nice reception, too, that I thought he was going to make zigzag his way through the defense and score. So he looked good again. But, yeah, we're going with Mekhi Cooper this week to get Wilson started on the right foot. So congratulations to Mekhi on a great game. And really all the Bulldogs. And you can just go down the list. Cleveland Harding had 3 carries, 88 yards, and a touchdown, which the one was a 50-yard touchdown And I think that was the first offensive play of the game for Wilson.
Yes, we were up 21-0 when we had run one play.
So, actually, the big star in terms of carries and yardage was freshman Corell Akings. He had 8 carries for 74 yards and a touchdown, which was, I believe, his first varsity touchdown. So congratulations to him. Adam Woods, the backup quarterback behind Tommy Hunsaker, he carried the ball 3 times for 56 yards, including a 30-yard touchdown run from him, his second in a row.
Right.
He had one last week against Penn Manor. And I mentioned Cam Jones, 33 yards and a touchdown. Tommy Hunsaker also had 1 carry for 15 yards, and he scored. So right there, 5 rushing touchdowns from the Bulldogs. And then a few more guys got to carries, including Pat Donato, Evan Gruber, Christian Duarte Diaz, Manzanilla, and Aliza. So a bunch of guys getting in on the rushing stat sheet, but then passing wise, we had 3 quarterbacks attempt passes. Tommy was 5 of 4 for 61 yards and a score. That one went to Austin Velukovic. Beautifully thrown ball. Great catch by Austin. Pat Donato was 2 for 2 for 26 yards and a touchdown, and his touchdown went to Evan Gruber.
Oh my God.
The senior making a fabulous catch in double or triple coverage in the back corner of the end zone.
That was a great throw, great catch.
Great throw, great catch. I wish I was on that side of the end zone because I was way on our side, and then it happened on the McCaskey side. So I got pictures of it, but it's zoomed in. It's kind of grainy. But, man, he made a fabulous catch. And great. I love to see seniors get touchdowns like that. It's always a lot of fun.
And to make plays like that, to get your touchdown, that's exciting.
Yes. Adam Woods did attempt 1 pass. So 3 Wilson Bulldogs attempted passes. Again, 6 for 8, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns. No receiver made more than 1 catch. So the 6 catches all went to different guys. Cam Jones, Evan Gruber, Jackson Wagner, Austin Velukovic, Dominic Delgado, and Brady Klein all hauled in a reception, and Gruber and Velukovic got the touchdowns. We did see 1 punt, but that was by sophomore Christo Hunsaker. It wasn't by Tommy or earlier in the game. It was when the game was well in hand. 1 interception this week, a defensive play right before halftime by Ethan Addison. Got his hands on a ball.
It was cool to have him right in front of the Wilson bench.
It did, and everyone was super excited. That was probably the most fun aspect of the game Friday night, is seeing how excited everyone on the sideline was whenever anyone made a play.
Right.
You know, because you're seeing, like we said, some seniors that don't get a lot of playing time, or some reserve guys that are more like JV guys that haven't made the next step to varsity. Everyone was playing, and anytime a big play happened on offense, defense, special team, everyone was super engaged and excited to see him. Was just celebrating. So it was a lot of fun. It was a great one Friday night for senior night. So I do have a photo album up from the game, obviously, and also senior night. Unfortunately, my camera did suffer a malfunction during senior night festivities. I had to quick run over and make a change with the camera, and I believe, miss at least 1, if not 2 families. So I apologize for that. Not much I could do about it. I tried to fix things quickly and get back over there, but thankfully, Willie Copeland was there.
Right.
So
crisis averted.
First of all, you should be going to him first every time, because Willie's amazing. So contact Willie Copeland if you would like senior night photos, football and cheerleading. But you can certainly get an idea of what you would be getting from Willie by looking through my album. And I post the links to all those on social media on Wilson Bulldogs and Wilson Bulldogs football. So you can find all those there. All right, Justin, anything else to say about the game against?
No, it was good to see. And like you kind of said, in part, what goes into Makai's performance was setting the tone right away, to be able to go out. That's a game where we knew what should happen, but it's a whole different thing to go out there and actually make it happen. And to be able to do that was huge. And now it's get back to work, because you've got a big game this week. And don't believe it's like last year where, looking back, it was, oh man, we had to win that game to get in. Don't think that's the case this year unless some really crazy things were to happen.
No.
Right, like I don't think it's going to happen. However,
but you want to go in with a win.
You want to go in with a win. You want to beat good teams. You want to put yourself in the best position possible, and putting things together and getting a good win this week would be a big step into getting that momentum, especially because you're going to have to sit on it a week, So, like, you don't want that bad taste in your mouth for 2 weeks leading into that playoff game. So let's make sure we're ready to go. Because, yes, everything was clicking against McCaskey, but probably going to be a bit more resistance this week. So just making sure you are doing your job, not trying to do too much. And again, I know it's a whole different animal, but being able to see everyone do their job against McCaskey, it takes that kind of effort. Yes, it's obviously going to be different when you're playing against Township, but the idea is the same. Everybody needs to be ready to step up, be ready to do their job, and as a team, go out there and earn the victory.
I'll be interested to see, you know what, we're going to dive into a Manheim Township preview right here because we're done talking about McCaskey. It's time to move on, turn the page, and look ahead to Game 10. And I'd be interested to see what defensive coordinator Ernie Wolber draws up for this because Manheim Township has become, I don't want to call them one-dimensional because they still try to run the ball, but they're very pass-heavy offense. And we saw this week against McCaskey, Wilson's defense was primarily in a 3-4 with 4 linebackers, 4 defensive backs to kind of offset the speed that McCaskey presented with their spread offense. The first group absolutely shut down both phases of the McCaskey game. Obviously, Township's going to be a lot more of an issue, but Hayden Johnson is a fantastic quarterback. I believe he's only a junior too. The Blue Streaks quarterback. He feels like he's been there for a while, but he'll be back again next year. But Wilson's got to take care of him this year first. So this Friday, October 28, Wilson goes to Manheim Township, play in Neffsville for the 53rd meeting with the Blue Streaks. Wilson leads the all-time series 39-12-1, and the Bulldogs have won the last 2, winning both in 2020 and 2021. Wilson won last year at very rainy Gursky on senior night, 21-14 on October 29th. Manheim Township's last win was at Gursky on September 27th, 2019, by a score of 30-14. The Blue Streaks are led by head coach Mark Evans. He is in his 11th season, believe it or not, already with the Blue Streaks. And he has certainly turned that program around to be a foe every season. It took a few years for them to get rolling, but I'd say 2016 they really had a breakthrough.
Once you got the system really kind of up to speed,
they've been the number one. They've been the number one team. The number one thorn in Wilson's side has been the Blue Streaks by and large, and they're having another very successful season. They were 6-4 in the regular season last year. Ended up 6-5 overall. They lost to Central York in the first round of the playoffs, and you remember Wilson beat Central York the very next week. This year they are 7-2, just like Wilson, losing in week 1 to Cumberland Valley by 4 and losing to Hempfield in week 5 by 3, 17-14. Since that loss to Hempfield, they've beaten McCaskey 55-6, Cedar Crest 42-14, Reading 49-14, and just this past week, Penn Manor 35-13. And we'll welcome in our Bulldogs this Friday. So you heard me mention quarterback Hayden Johnson, but they're also led by another Declan Clancy, running back, linebacker, offensive lineman, and linebacker Austin Day. Now, normally this is where I would mention Nick Good, but unfortunately he did suffer an injury and I believe is out for the season for them. He was their lead back going into this season. They have a couple good receivers in Landon Kennel and Charlie Kingsbury, and a few defensive standouts in Jake Lawback, and especially defensive end Eli Rodriguez, who is a move-in from Lancaster-McCaskey, and he just looked really good for the Blue Streaks this year. So those are the names to look out for. But Manheim Township, again, the biggest hurdle left for the Bulldogs this season, and it will set the stage for the district playoffs. What happens in this game? Wilson's got to climb up to at least 6, if not 5, with a win over Township. Should send Township down. And now we're talking about who are you playing in the first round? And honestly, I don't know how much seeding is going to matter other than if you have host the game or not.
Right. Yeah. We've been talking about it since early on in the season. It's gonna be wild. Like even if you looked at them as they are now, which we know is not anywhere near the finalized thing. Any of those teams like Carlisle, even though the record I think is at 5-4 right now, like they have some decent wins this year. And I don't think there's anybody who's like, yeah, that's who we want. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I would say the same teams are probably thinking the same thing at Wilson at 7. Like people have got to be thinking, you're telling me Wilson is the 7 seed? Like, no, they don't want that.
No.
With their losses to Hempfield, who's having a great year, and Roman Catholic, who's having a good year. I didn't see how Roman Catholic did this week, but they've been doing very well.
It's a good question. Should have looked that up. But yeah, Mifflin struggling, Central Dauphin struggling, Martin Luther King struggling. The only team of substance in the Wilson's non-league schedule, Roman Catholic, and Wilson didn't win that game.
Yeah, so. If you want to talk about like why, we kind of talked about some of these things before, but a down year for
they beat LaSalle College High School 31-14.
Wow, a down year for but. I was glad to see Abdul Carter, LaSalle grad, have a good weekend. But seeing guys, or seeing Mifflin down year, Central Dauphin down year, all those things go into Wilson being at 7, So, but like you said, there's still some movement to be had, especially if you can get a win this week.
Yeah. And I had mentioned Carlisle earlier. They beat Altoona this past week 24-14, and they finished with CD East, who, I would say that should be a Carlisle win. But again, with what CD East just did to Central Dauphin, maybe that'll be a bigger test for Carlisle. I don't know.
Carlisle also beat Cumberland Valley.
Right.
That
was the big one that shook things up last week that we talked about. They played tough against York William Penn in the game that over 100 points were scored.
Yeah, that game was nuts.
That was an offensive shootout. And they upset Cumberland Valley just a week plus ago. So it'll be interesting. Obviously, Wilson doesn't like to go to Manheim Township. Things have not always gone our way down in Neffsville. Lost there twice in 2017, the first one ending the LL section win streak that Wilson had going on, which ended at 68 consecutive wins against LL1 opponents. And then just a few weeks later, Wilson went back there and lost again. If you just look at the scoreboard, those games, especially the first one, weren't that close. But that second game, that playoff game was very close, despite, I believe, it may have been a 10-plus point loss. But it's one of those things where at the end, you're just trying and trying and trying. Right. And usually when you try too hard, you end up giving away some points that in a normal game setting you wouldn't have given away. But Wilson always plays tough and is in a hard out. So is Manheim Township. That's what they've become. All due respect to Mark Evans and the staff out there, because that has been Wilson's main opponent here now until George Eager took over at Hempfield. Right. So now we've gone from Wilson kind of owning things for the better part of a decade to a two-headed race between Wilson and Manheim Township, and now all of a sudden there are 3 horses in that race, and Hempfield is a game away from winning that Section 1 title outright. All they have to do is beat Reading because they've already clinched a share.
Right.
So it'll be interesting, not just how this season finishes, but how the next few years go.
Right.
There's always an oscillation. And that's why we come back around to Wilson's streak of consecutive winning and non-losing seasons. You look at any of these programs and there's up and down years. It's hard to consistently win at the level that Wilson has done for the better part of 5 decades. It's just amazing. But Township and Hempfield are here right now, and they got to take care of the Blue Streaks this coming Friday.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because, I think it's safe to say the 2 best teams on our schedule were Hempfield and Roman Catholic. And both of those were losses. Now the Roman Catholic one, we've addressed that enough this year. That is what it is. What are you going to do? The Hempfield one, I feel like Hempfield played very well. I think Wilson has a lot of what ifs on that game. But they've obviously moved on. We talked about that last week after the Penn Manor game. They talked about how they had moved on and just kind of handle their business now. But all right, Township is probably the third best team we're going to face so far,
Yeah.
And so what have you got?
Yeah, and
Let's
yeah.
see. We're going to see where we're at.
Unfortunately, I mean, it was pointed out by the Hempfield fans leading up to the game against them that we hadn't beaten anyone of any substance, and honestly, it sits there. It's still kind of true. Like,
Right.
we've taken care of business against the team we should have beat, but we've struggled against the better teams.
Right.
Roman Catholic that was a juggernaut. I don't know.
Right. There's nothing to hang
I'm
your
not
head
sure
about
how much
there.
could have changed. They
Right.
have so much Division I talent on that team. It was always going to be a tough matchup.
Right.
That was going to be a hard out, a hard game to get a victory. But Hempfield's one, you're like, we can easily win that game. We should have won this game. That's what Wilson is thinking. We should have won this game. So now you got a chance to prove that you are better than some of these teams that are in front of you in the power ratings right now. And they very well could have a rematch with Hempfield on the horizon too, to prove the point of what we're all thinking is we are better than Hempfield.
Right.
And
right.
no better place to do that than the playoffs, where you get to keep playing and send them home.
Right, exactly. But you have to earn it. You have to earn that spot. And
that starts with this week.
Right, exactly. So handling your business this week against Manheim Township, because we saw a few years ago, and because I know there's been a lot of talk about a potential rematch with Hempfield at some point, and I think it was with Mifflin, and that was the year Wilson and Mifflin both lost in the semifinals of districts, and didn't get to play in the final. It was probably back in the 4A situation. I think it was Mifflin, but
no, we won and they lost.
Oh, okay. But
that was the year.
But you know what I mean? Like, it was one of those where
that was 2014, the year that Wilson came back in epic fashion and won in the season opener against Mifflin, and then everyone thought we were bound to play them again.
Right.
I believe it was 2014, but Central Dauphin beat them, I believe, in Shillington. And Wilson ended up playing Central Dauphin, led by freshman Micah Parsons, in the District 3 4A championship at Hershey, and Wilson ended up winning that game against Central Dauphin 21-10. Wilson beat Central Dauphin twice that season. I think that was the year that we're thinking about, that 2014 year. Could have maybe also happened in 2013. Wilson lost in the semifinals to Lower Dauphin. I don't remember where Mifflin was that year, but Wilson blitzed Shillington. Why am I doing that? Wilson blitzed Mifflin 38-7 to start the 2013 season. So.
It'll be interesting. I think there's lots of fans who would like to see that. I don't know how much. Well, I mean, I feel like we were on the wrong end of it, so I feel like our guys would love that opportunity. But like we said, there's a lot of work to do between now and then. So you don't want to worry about something that might not even happen when the Township game this weekend is going to happen. So handle your business.
I didn't run last week when I did this with 2 weeks to play. I had Wilson winning against McCaskey, and if they beat Township, I have them moving up to 5. And our likely opponent would be Cumberland Valley, because as it stands now, Central York's 1, Hempfield's 2, Harrisburg's 3, Township's 4. But if we beat Township, they'll drop down. We will jump up, because they'll be 7-3 and we'll be 8-2, and that's a very important win for us, despite our strength of schedule. We will jump up over them. Now, they may only slot down from 4 to 6, but we will be in front of Township with a win over them this Friday. I'm fairly certain on that probability. York William Penn plays Central York. I definitely expect Central York to win that game, so that's another team in front of Wilson that could possibly lose, and that would be a huge difference in the power rating, especially because York William Penn isn't playing 10 games. They're only playing 9 games. So that opportunity to win another one was taken away from them by not having a full schedule. Carlisle is already behind Wilson. If Wilson wins, you're not dropping behind them.
Right.
So Wilson is only going to move up with that win against Township. I think they're going to move up to 5. How the 4 teams in front of them are slotted, if they all win, I don't think much is going to change. So if Central York beats York William, wins, Central York's 1. If Hempfield beats Reading, Hempfield should be 2. Harrisburg beats Central Dauphin, they should be 3. And as long as Cumberland Valley doesn't suffer a defeat this week, which I don't recall who they play. They play Altoona. So Cumberland Valley plays Altoona, District 6, so it doesn't... Altoona doesn't matter in the picture here, but it matters only for Cumberland Valley. If Cumberland Valley wins and we beat Manheim Township, Cumberland Valley moves to 4. I think with a win and nothing crazy happening, Wilson is going to Cumberland Valley for the first round of playoffs. That's my expectation.
Okay.
So
I think one thing to keep an eye on, and I don't expect them to win, but William Penn and Central York, because William Penn's offense is dynamic. What can they turn that game into a shootout? Because if they can turn it into a shootout, they've got a chance against anyone. I'd say that any week. Now, I don't know how they stop the other teams, but
yeah, they have struggled to
but
do
if
that.
it turns into a shootout, you never know. A fumble or an interception, or just who gets the ball last. That kind of thing.
It really could be just like that.
So we saw it earlier. And I haven't followed Woodland Hills, but they went toe to toe with Woodland Hills. They've had some. They're tested this year.
Yeah, they've had a lot of good close games. They played Hempfield really close.
That could throw a wrench in things. Just that was kind of the point. Just because you'd have a lower half team in the bracket beating the current number 1 seed, so Central York probably wouldn't drop out of the top 4, but that could throw a wrench into Wilson's plans if they were to beat them. I don't think they.
I think Central York's going to win that game by 3 touchdowns. Honestly,
and that's fair.
I
that's
think
fair.
Central York is still, even with the loss of Bo Pribula,
they've kind of shown that they're the team to beat.
They're reloading. They're the team in York Adams that has stepped up and finally say, hey, we can go toe to toe with these other District 3 teams from LL Burks and Mid Penn.
Right.
And that's what they've become. It's Central York, and they're going to go into this postseason as the number 1. And then should things play out the way I had them, again, this is all with a Wilson win Friday. Things could change, but if Wilson wins Friday, they're 5. Go to Cumberland Valley. Should you win that game, you got to go back to Central York for a second straight year. Them very much aware of what happened last year. So, things could play out exactly like last season, where Wilson has to win 2 games on the road to then probably go to Harrisburg for the district championship. So, hey, maybe the second time will be a charm, but also just as a reminder for everyone out there that Harrisburg has directly or indirectly ended Wilson's season every single season since 2018. So this could be a 6th straight year, depending on how the playoffs shake out, but that's a lot of future prognostication and looking into crystal balls, because first thing Wilson needs to take care of is the Blue Streaks this Friday night in Neffsville. That's the big one. It was circled on everyone's calendar. Unfortunately, Hempfield threw a wrench in the plans to make it the de facto section championship game, which it was last year.
Right.
And Wilson came out top in wet and disgusting conditions at Gursky. This time, let's avoid
raining so hard the back wall of the press box got wet. Because it was blowing through the window.
After senior night pictures, I noped out of there and came up and photographed it from the booth, because I was like, my camera is going to get destroyed if I stay out.
Because it wasn't just rain; it was raining sideways,
and pouring. And Sean Dendel had that amazing catch.
Yes.
Man, that was great to win that game.
Arguably saved the season.
Yeah, and Brad Hoffman.
He was there on Friday
Jones
night,
show.
by the way.
Yeah, we talked to Sean after the game. Yeah, so great. A lot of fun. So, appreciate everyone's efforts at senior night, both on the field and off of it. Great atmosphere to recognize the senior players and cheerleaders, and also the most valuable Bulldog program, which I believe Matt Citrone and his students will have a video up about that the coming weeks. I know it takes some time for them to edit that, so I'll make sure to share that when it is available, because it's cool. Last year they handed out the jerseys, and this year went a little bit different and kind of rebranded the program as the MVB, the most valuable Bulldog, but still giving out to important
right. And they expanded, so it wasn't just football this year.
Right, so they went around.
Which is cool.
So, a lot more people got involved. Very cool for them to do that. Very fun. And, again, congratulations on being selected by MJ.
Thanks to MJ. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, MJ. So, awesome. And we saw Kiernan was picked. Coach Wolver was picked. There's a whole bunch of people involved with these student athletes. So.
Quick separate note, but still kind of going back to the McCaskey game. Some of the special needs classrooms, they had students there, and they had them kind of sitting in a designated area, to help kind of with some of the sensory. issues and things that can be there. But one of them got to go out with for the coin toss, and there's so much crossover there between guys on the team who either volunteer or some have their internships in some of those classrooms and things like that. It's really cool to see. That's not necessarily new. That event may be new this year, but like that relationship between the team and helping and being in those classrooms has been going on for a while. So that was just another cool thing to see.
Right, cool
on
aspect,
senior night.
Sure.
It's really cool. It's really cool.
I'm scrambling to see if I can pull up the picture and pull this off. Yeah, here we go. So just I saw at one point when Cam scored his touchdown, he also turned and pointed over to all of them watching.
Yeah,
so
it was down in that corner.
It was very cool.
Like,
right in front of them. So it was really cool to have the student out there for the coin toss, hanging out, everyone having a good time. Really, really awesome event. Very, very well done once again. So yeah, cool. It was just a cool night. It was a cool night all around, and everything just went well. It was good. It was fun. I talked about the seniors getting carried off and everything. Just got to see that. That's always fun.
Yeah. It was cool.
Unfortunately, we couldn't do it last year because it was raining. Like everyone was just kind of like trying to get out of the way.
Right. It had rained so hard.
Don't want to be on the field anymore. But a lot of cool moments and cool memories as the underclassmen carry off the seniors to wrap up the senior night festivities. So there's our player of the game, Mekhi Cooper, and Rafael Fernandez, who had a good game as well. And it's just fun, very fun. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so those are all available in my album as well. So yeah, oh, there you go. There we go. There's your MJ and his MVP. Look at that.
Yeah, there we go. That was awesome.
Yeah, so very cool. Hopefully they do something like it again next year. Whether or not it's the exact same thing, I don't know. But now 2 years in a row, the seniors got to spotlight a teacher or an adult from the Wilson School District that has meant a lot to them. So yeah, very cool, very cool. So anything else? McCaskey Township, Wilson football playoffs, anything to add here as we wrap up episode 15?
No, just kind of like handle your work. Make sure you're ready to go for Friday night. You're going to get a great shot from Township.
They'll be ready.
So they're sitting at 5 currently.
They're at 4.
Okay, so they're at 4. So they're looking at
huge.
Right, they're looking at a home game. Like,
yes.
And they're looking for, they're kind of in the same spot or a similar spot where we are. A couple tough losses to really good teams. They have that win against Harrisburg.
Right.
They're going to be ready. There's a lot on the line for them. There's a lot on the line for Wilson. It's going to be that classic matchup, or at least you would think. It's not for the section title, most likely, but it is going to be an interesting matchup in Neffsville. So be ready. Be ready.
Yeah, they're sitting at 4, and that again is without their most recent win, wasn't even added. And I don't remember off the top of my head how close they were to 3, but you throw that win in, and then if they would beat Wilson, they could possibly even move up to 3. I don't know if that will happen. Again, I'll have to run some of these scenarios now that we're only 1 week away, but a huge game for Township too. To get to an 8th win, to stay at 4, if not move to 3 in the power ratings, and host another game in Neffsville in the playoffs, and make Wilson most likely have to go to Lancaster-Lebanon and play Hempfield in the first round. That's what I think would happen. Should Wilson lose Friday to Manheim Township, I think Wilson's going to drop the 7 and then be forced to play Hempfield in the first round on the road.
Right. Well, it's all going to play itself out, right?
One game at a time.
Exactly.
I know the coaches are probably mad that we're talking so much about the playoffs, but honestly, there wasn't too much to talk about from the game Friday night, so we had to fill it in somehow. And we're still going to end a few minutes early, so I apologize. We're going to shortchange you all by about 4 minutes. So I'm blaming Justin. We're just going to pretend that it's his fault.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with you rushing to see your Dolphins.
Right. I don't even know if
I
they're
know,
winning.
I know. You haven't even checked
I
once
haven't.
during the show. I've checked twice, but you haven't even checked once. And
I haven't.
it's just
I
funny.
haven't. No, I'm
Just
still.
one other real quick thing, Wilson related, not Wilson football related, but the Wilson girls field hockey team won the county championship, and I know a bunch of the ladies on the team. That's awesome. I'm really happy for them.
Yeah, I'm
really
super
cool.
thrilled for them. It was awesome. I texted that to you last night
you
as
did.
I saw Paul Roberts mention it. He was there. He covered a bunch of stuff, including the soccer championships as well. I would have loved to have been there to photograph the girls. It's just so tough during football season.
The game also ended at 10 o'clock.
The girls, unfortunately, did lose to Y missing in, I think, double overtime.
Yeah, with like 3 minutes left.
And both teams are also still very young, so both teams could be back there next year. So congratulations to the girls soccer team, Berks County runners-up. Congratulations to the field hockey team, Berks County champs. I know everyone was pointing out it had still their first county championship since 2010. I'm like, that's great and all, but they won a state title in 2019. Right. So I think, and they've won at least one, if not multiple District 3 titles.
What tends to get overlooked is Twin Valley has had some good teams in that stretch.
And Ole Valley.
And Ole is like one of the other elite programs. Like Wilson is an elite program.
They just have a graduate that's lighting it up for Penn State right now.
Right. And Ole is an elite program. So like, yes, they're a smaller school, but you don't get it if you don't understand like where Ole is on that hierarchy of PA field hockey.
Yes.
So
well, South Central, Southeastern Pennsylvania, and well, actually, from like the Allentown area, because you got to throw Emmaus in there, and down through like Berks County and into the Lancaster-Lebanon, like field hockey mecca. Like it's incredible the amount of talent that comes out from this area in field hockey. But yeah, congratulations to Coach Underwood and the field hockey staff and student athletes. Excellent job. And also
one of my students gave me an actual like a little tutorial, like crash course on field hockey rules the other day. So yeah.
I would need that course, yes.
Oh, it was actually very beneficial.
Well, yeah, when I went to the state championship game to photograph, literally, I have how many hundreds of thousands of Wilson football pictures? What's the picture on my monitor?
Right. It's the picture of Emily hitting.
It's the Emily Horace shootout field hockey goal to win the state championship, because it may be the best picture I've ever taken.
Right.
And it'll never not be here in some form, because if it's not on my monitor, it's hanging up right
on the wall.
It's hanging up right over there with the other football pictures. But yeah, the last thing I do want to say Wilson related, and then we are getting out of here, is the girls volleyball team is in the county championship against Twin Valley.
I believe it is Twin Valley.
They just beat Exeter 3-0, right? And they play tomorrow night at Wilson. Wilson is hosting the game because they were the number 1 seed. They at least won it last year. They might have won it the last 2.
I feel like last year was the first year they won it.
Okay. They were like runners up 2 years ago.
I think they might have beat Exeter last year.
Yeah. Well, Exeter had been the dominant program.
But Exeter had won it the year before. Yeah. I think.
Yeah, so Exeter had been the dominant program. Wilson has taken that mantle last year, winning the counties. Now this year, the chance to go back-to-back, taking on Twin Valley at Wilson tomorrow night, I think at 7. I could be wrong on that. Check wilsonsdathletics.org, and I'll try to put stuff out on the Wilson Bulldogs athletics site that I run on Facebook. But if you can, go to the Wilson Gymnasium tomorrow evening and watch Wilson Bulldogs girls volleyball hopefully win another county championship.
Yes.
So, all right, I think that is it for us now here at the Bulldog Hour. We appreciate everyone tuning in and watching us live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Please like and subscribe to those sites so you can always get our updates. And if you're listening to this after the broadcast on the podcatcher, we appreciate you downloading and catching up with us in the future.
Yeah.
And be back here in 1 week's time as we recap the game against Manheim Township and look ahead to the District 3 6A playoffs. So for Wilson Football and Justin Raffoff, I'm Joe Mays. And remember, until next time, go Bulldogs.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. Or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a featured program on jmnjrradio.com.